be made only when recognized and applause is appropriate, only in recognition of an individual or group honor or special presentation. Thank you for your cooperation. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Number 3 on the agenda, approval of minutes, Board of Education regular meeting February 2nd, which is on page 4. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? Patrick?
I'll second.
And Donna, second? Oh, okay. Donna beat you to it. Any corrections? Questions? Not, can we call roll, please?
Ms. Bradley?
Yes.
Ms. Cloud Ingram?
Yes.
Ms. Jacquet?
Yes.
Dr. Karan Karan?
Yes.
Ms. Lombardi?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. McDonough?
Yes.
Dr. Oladelay?
Yes.
Ms. Rabuse?
Yes.
Ms. Link?
Yes.
Ms. Schuster? Is she
She's
here?
not on yet.
Not on yet. Mr. Young?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Motion carries. Next, we move to public comment. Prior to public comment, I just want to clarify an issue that kind of arose today. There was a posting online that the school district was planning to put in turf fields at the 2 middle schools. Though this came up at our last meeting, this is factually incorrect. The only mention of the fields at the middle schools was in possibly planning for the bond that might go in to the future, and that's one of the areas of the school district that might be considered. The money in there was quite large, I believe about close to 10 million, and that's for the 2 fields, and it was put in there just as a caution for the Board of Ed that that's probably the highest price that we'd have to pay if we did do the fields, whether it was turf, and that's not being considered, and no one's recommended that, and none of our committees have even mentioned it, or even a grass field that would need all sorts of drainage and other things that go into that. So for now, we're not dealing with the bond issue, and if anybody's here to speak in opposition or in favor of turf fields, come back next year, and maybe we'll listen to you at that particular time. With that, at this time, the board would like to invite members of the public up to the lectern for public comment. Please state your full name and address. If you are a student or under 18 years of age, please state only your first name. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes for public comment, with a maximum of 20 minutes per meeting allocated for any one item. Speakers are reminded that presentations are to be made in a respectful manner. Personal issues related to students or staff are not permitted, and derogatory language which maligns the character of staff members, board members, and other members of the public is unacceptable and not in keeping with board policy and core values. Please note that as a matter of board policy, the board does not respond to public comments or questions immediately, but may discuss the subject and respond, if appropriate, at some time in the future. And so with that, if there's anybody here for public comment, the podium is open, and you are welcome to go. And you can see the clock running up there at 3 minutes, and we're ready to go.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Liam Roselle. I'm a senior here at Amity Regional High School, and I'm here again to oppose the funding of Magic School AI, Class Companion, and all related services. Now, I've been told that these are not grading tools and that they're learning tools, so we've invented a new buzzword for it, and that they will determine feedback like 1 out of 3, but they aren't going to determine final grades. And my response is that that distinction doesn't matter at all to me. AI in schools is morally wrong, regardless of how you use it or how you phrase it. Whether you call it grading, learning, feedback, or whatever, the fundamental problem remains that we're outsourcing educational judgment to companies whose values will directly conflict with that of which we claim to teach. All of these platforms are powered by GPT-4, an OpenAI product. OpenAI is a major ICE contractor and donor, which provides technology used in deportations, raids, and other surveillance operations. When we fund OpenAI products for any purpose, we are financially supporting the separation of families, the targeting of immigrant communities, and potentially the harms of students in our districts. In 8th grade, I was part of the committee that piloted No Place for Hate at the middle school. And we've strayed very far from that if we're going to fund these. We can't claim to be no place for hate and fund exclusion. These same tools are environmental disasters. AI data centers consume about the same amount of energy as Russia and Japan, entire nations. And the systems for OpenAI that will power these programs will take 20 million gallons of water every single day for cooling. Communities near these data centers will face drinking water shortages, contamination of that water that they need to drink, all so that we can have learning tools instead of human connection. And I spoke with a lot of English teachers anonymously today, about maybe 9, and I'll tell you what they told me. They're concerned for AI in education as a learning tool. They worry that their relationships with students are going to be replaced with the feedback of an algorithm, and they're worried that their jobs are going to become obsolete as these learning tools expand. They'll worry about being complicit in supporting companies whose technology harms people. These are the experts in the building, and they're telling you that this is wrong because of what it is and who it supports. It isn't an issue of individual teachers. Teachers didn't choose to fund OpenAI. Teachers didn't decide to prioritize corporate contracts. The district did that. And I don't care if these tools will never assign a single final grade, and I don't care how much professional development teachers get. My school is funding ICE operations. My school is funding an environmental destruction on a scale that the world has never seen. I don't care how the tool is used, and I care what it represents and how the company profits from it. It's morally indefensible when it comes at the cost of families, the environments, and our district's integrity as a top one in the state. I request that you please reconsider funding these measures at the request of Amity students. Thank you.
Thank you. No clapping, please. Next person.
My name is Phil, I'm a senior, and I'm going to do something a little bit different tonight. I'm not going to talk about politics, I'm going to talk about science. And on account of we're all in a school, I hope we can all agree on that.
Can you just speak up just a little bit?
Okay, yeah, of course.
That's good. Thank you.
Good evening all. As you're all well aware, the 2026-27 budget includes a few troubling requests and provisions regarding the use of AI as an instructional tool. I'm not going to argue that AI has no useful applications because that would just be wrong. All neural networks is a really very interesting math equation, and I think math is useful. However, as it has been shown time and time again, without fail, the use of AI in an educational setting is an unparalleledly terrible idea. Researchers at Amity found in a randomized controlled trial study that those who use AI to assist writing in any capacity, quote, consistently underperformed at neural, linguistic, and behavioral levels. I don't think, as a matter of policy, we should be pushing our students to underperform. I think we should be doing the opposite. In another study by Anthropic magazine, it was found that students who study using AI performed, on average, 17% lower on quizzes than those who studied by hand. And I want to clarify, that's about 2-letter grades. The notion that AI can help students in education is a myth. Furthermore, as far as I can tell, there exist no credible randomized controlled studies on whether AI use on the part of teachers helps students. I cannot conceive of any reason we would support such a thing. There is no scientific evidence to support providing these tools. And in other professions where the trials have been conducted, we know that those who use AI get worse at their jobs. They lose skills. Now, could it be possible that teaching is an outlier? Maybe. I'm not going to deny that possibility, but it is not the job of this board to undertake rash policy changes based on guesswork without the support of science in a way that demonstrably hurts students. It's the job of this board to protect students, and as such I find it utterly nauseating that I had tools submitted into the budget for the next year. And I get it. I'm a student too. Large language models are cool. It makes intuitive sense to want to incorporate them. I see that just as well as you all do. But what I also see is the students who come to me in the math intervention room who don't know how to do arithmetic without the help of ChatGPT. Those same students who swear by it as a study tool but still underperform on tests. And it confuses them and it frightens them. I don't think that's something we should be supporting. It would be a grave disservice and amount to pedagogical malpractice to approve a budget which financially promulgates the use of AI in education. The facts just don't line up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, Erica Higgins, 303 Drummond Road in Orange. I'm up here as a mom of a senior and a freshman. My senior has been accepted into a top university, and I have to thank Amity for all of their hard work that they have done. I am so proud of this district. I am so proud of every single teacher that my son has had the opportunity to guide and mentor him. And as you guys are going into this budget season, I know that there has been some opposition, some people saying we need a small increase. Our teachers are invaluable. And I think sometimes people on this board forget that. And they're worried about books and libraries, and they're worried about nonsensical things. When I see that my son has overcome a lot of adversity, and he has had a lot of support at this absolute district that I cannot say enough about, take that into consideration when you are all voting for this budget. And I hope you all vote yes this time, because it has been very disheartening to see as a mom that there are other parents that have had kids go through the district and that are currently in the district that have voted it down. And I'd like to know, why would you vote it down when your kids are going to be the ones benefiting from what's going on in this district? Our teachers need support. They need their salaries. Listen, they all need pay increases. I'm a daughter-in-law of a retired superintendent. My mother just retired after 53 years in public education, and I am making more than she is as a 53-year veteran teacher. To me, that's pathetic. Our teachers deserve the best of the best so that they can give the best of the best for our kids. So please, please think it through when you guys are putting this budget together and you realize that a 2% margin, which is ridiculously low compared to other districts, it's actually laughable. We should be doing a lot more, and we should be funding a lot more for our district and for the success of the future of our district. So please take that into consideration. And thank you all for everything that you have done for my child. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sean Mann, 965 Orange Center Road. I'm here tonight to ask for the Board of Ed to reconsider the proposed reduction to the Amity 26-27 budget of the full-time equivalency for the PE teacher at Amity Regional High School. I am not only a 26-year resident of Orange, I have also been a teacher at Amity since 1998, and I am also the parent of 2 Amity graduates. Amity Regional High School has always prided itself on providing an education that goes above and beyond basic state requirements, and this should be no different for physical education. Over the course of my tenure, physical education has been reduced from a requirement for all grades, 9 through 12, to only through 11th grade when the 9th graders were brought into the high school in 2005. Then again in 2010, with the adjustment from a straight 7 period to an 8-drop-2 schedule, PE was impacted to fit into the lab period so as to provide greater opportunity for students to take electives. Each time there have been impacts to our program, we have been team players and worked to maintain a continuum of programming so we are able to live our mission with our students of promoting lifelong fitness and wellness. We promote that philosophy through a scope and sequence that creates continuity of instruction by providing PE for 10th and 11th graders that spans the entirety of the school year. The proposed shift will not only significantly impact this mission, it will impede student elective choices with other departments such as visual and performing arts and career and technical education by separating PE from how it currently fits opposite of the science labs. Not only will this change significantly limit students' ability to take full year electives, it will necessitate a comprehensive overhaul of our curriculum, including the need for significant summer work and payment for that work to rewrite our curriculum scope and sequence. Members of my department will have to work throughout the summer to modify the entire program to make the necessary adjustments. In short, a change like this is significant and something I would have thought as a department chairperson I would have been consulted or at least brought into an early conversation during the process so I could offer feedback and begin to prepare for a shift like this. As it stands, I was blindsided 2 weeks ago when I was told of this change, and it has sent my department into a tailspin. I am respectfully requesting the Board of Ed reject this proposal of robbing Peter to pay Paul, because our high school students should not have their physical activity, education, and wellness stolen from them in order to reduce one of the lowest budgets in the state even further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Am I allowed to hand out a handout to go along with what Eric's about to say?
No.
No problem, we'd be happy to talk about this, and you can start the time. Anytime that the board or anyone would like to. My name is Eric Rothbart. I am a health and PE teacher here at Amity. This is my 9th year, as well as my 12th year teaching. Just want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here on behalf of my colleagues, a group of professionals that have a collective range of experience from 3, 5, 7, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 29 years of field experience. We are passionate about health and PE. We love our work, and we consistently do everything we can for the students here at Amity. I would like to start by highlighting something from the norms outlined in the board website. Make decisions based on what's best for the collective student body of Amity Region 5. Respect the professional expertise of staff. Be flexible in response to challenges. Collaboratively engage in discussions and actions, and once voted upon, provide undivided support. The first line states that what we do should be what's best for students in our district. That leads us to a fundamental question here: what truly is in the best interest of our students? As Sean said, the changes currently being proposed are unclear and without our knowledge up until recently. In our professional judgment, it does not align best with our curriculum or the needs of our students. Two questions continue to resurface right now. Why is physical education being reduced here at the high school, and why is the schedule being proposed changed in a way that causes that reduction? Neither question has been answered to us so far, and neither answers what's best for students. These, in relation to PE. These changes would drastically change our entire 7 through 12 curriculum and instruction. While this change may add PE time, which was requested by the community, it also takes away PE time where it's arguably needed most. Research shows that activity levels decline in children once they reach adolescence. Students aged 6 to 11 get about 88 minutes of physical activity time, while students aged 16 to 19 average just 26. While these levels far below the recommendation from the World Health Organization of 60 minutes per day. And recently, when asking students about how PE impacts their day, some students specifically referenced how PE is the only physical activity they get during the week. At the end of the day, the physical benefits of PE are undeniable. Healthy lifestyles get formed in our classes, which can help combat the rise of obesity now at 19%, or 1 in 5 children. In addition, the physical activity in our classes, specifically our focus on cardiovascular endurance, helps to combat heart disease, which is still the #1 cause of death in America. However, what stands out as the most impactful thing physical education has is the impact on students' mental health. Recently, when I asked my classes about how PE impacts their day, the students unanimously emphasized. Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Hello, Tesh Chika, 320 Cossack Drive in Orange. I wanted to share my perspective on the proposal to reduce physical education in the high school. Excuse me. I'm an Amity alumni, class of 2020. I was a Division I athlete, and I'm now a college coach. But my foundation didn't start in college athletics. It started in my high school gym. During my 3 years of year-long physical education, my PE teachers had a meaningful impact on me. Because PE wasn't just one semester, but an all-year class, those teachers were able to truly get to know us. They built relationships, noticed when we were struggling, and supported us in ways that went beyond fitness. One of my PE teachers, Mr. Mann, actually wrote my college recommendation letter. Now, that only happened because of the relationship we developed over time. The connection I formed with him and other PE teachers weren't surface level. They were built through consistency and trust, and they've lasted well beyond graduation. Now, as a college coach, I now know how important it is for young adults to have already developed healthy habits. Managing stress, staying active, and maintaining routines doesn't happen by accident. For many students, physical education is the only consistent opportunity to build those skills. Not every student will become an athlete, but every student benefits from movement. Physical education supports mental health, improves focus and productivity, and teaches students how to care for their bodies in a sustainable way. Reducing PE may seem small on paper, but it has real consequences for students' long-term well-being and the relationships that support them. PE isn't just about movement, it's about time, consistency, and relationships. And these are things our students deserve more of, not less. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Elizabeth Smolinski, and I'm an art teacher at AMSB, and I'm at 25 Prospect Court in Woodbridge. I'm also the parent of a 6th and 4th grader who will both attend Amity schools. I've been a teacher for 22 years, and 18 of those have been at Amity. First at the high school and now at the middle school. At Amity, I've taught 12 different courses total and have experienced a multitude of schedules. In the 22 years I've taught, I've never attended a Board of Education meeting, until now, and that's because this is the first time I felt strongly about an issue enough to do so, and that issue is the newly proposed schedule. For the first time, I'm not confident that my school district will best support students' learning, and that includes my own children. For the past 2 years, I've seen some of the best student work I've ever gotten. I'm in constant contact with their team teachers during meetings, so I'm always up to date on students' individual needs. And students have daily affirmation that my course is just as important as their other classes. I provide experiences like 3D art, printmaking, acrylic painting, and other methods that involve permanent setups that have been made possible by the current schedule. I truly believe that the quality of the 7th and 8th grade art classes are quite high, and that's due to the current schedule. I can't tell you how many students and their parents have said something like, I never liked art in elementary school, but now I love it and I'm doing it at home in my free time. I think we're currently providing all students with experiences that are comparable to the past electives, which is great because many students are really leveling up as artists and surprising themselves. The new schedule means a student would have art class 3 times in 8 school days. Maintaining momentum, meeting students' needs, providing in-depth experiences, and keeping the students organized will be insurmountable. If art is an elective, there will be students who want to take it but don't get it in their schedule. This will generate 9th graders who enter Amity High School with inconsistent prior knowledge in life arts. This model of dropping 2 or flip-flopping days may work well for the high school, and I was a huge fan of it when I taught here myself at the high school. Plenty of Amity middle school teachers are saying this is not going to work for students and teachers. There are many special things we do at the middle school which will not be possible with the new schedule. Because the new schedule involves 2 periods dropping every day, all teachers will be unable to keep their classes aligned. Right now, we do many school-wide, class-wide, and team-wide activities and events, such as Salsa Day, Critical Issues Expo, whole school field trips, whole grade field trips, Portrait of a Graduate activities, guest speakers, career day, presentations from the high school, in-school music and theater performances, the list goes on and on. All of these things I've listed will mean that some classes will meet for less time or not at all, which will throw classes even more out of alignment. This will force teachers to drastically reduce the special experiences they currently create for students. The extra time gained from dropping classes will be largely spent on reviewing content. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, then we move on to number 5. Correspondence. Do we have any correspondence?
We do. So we had 3. We had several letters of a Woodbridge parent regarding an IEP evaluation. We had a letter concerning from a parent in Amity Woodbridge for child safety at bus pickup. And we had a parent concern from Amity Middle School Bethany regarding bathroom use.
Thank you. And next, we go to the middle school schedule presentation. Just as a way of keeping things going in an orderly manner, for board members, if a question comes up while the presentation is being made, please make note of it, and we'll wait until the entire presentation is done before we get to questions. Okay, so appreciate the cooperation there.
So while they're getting that set up, just by way of kind of sort of establishing where we are or how we got to this place. I'd say probably 3 years ago, we took some feedback from parents that they didn't like certain aspects of our middle school schedule. Certainly, there was feedback from teachers that they were upset that they couldn't offer elective classes. And definitely the people who were most responsible for building a schedule, our principals and assistant principals, all said this really isn't working. Schedules are not developed at the district level. They're not developed by superintendents. They're built by schools because schools know how best to sort of structure the day around the hours that we have. They know how long it takes to have passing time from one class to another. They know sort of like an optimal amount of class time or how many times we have disruptions or the other things that they want to do. As an elementary principal, I'll be honest, the schedules weren't even developed by the principal. We told the teachers when their specials were, and then within the course of the day, the classroom teachers or the grade level teachers would build the schedule. Building a schedule is at an operational level. So anyway, when they came and said, the schedule's not working, I said to my principals, great, go figure out and see how we can make it better. I put a couple parameters in. I did say, you may find that the schedule we have is the best one, and if it is, then we're not going to complain about it anymore because it's as good as we've got. You may go out and you may find a better schedule, which is great. If you do, I had 3 requests. That Amity Middle School Bethany and Amity Middle School Orange would have the same schedule, that they wouldn't come up with 2 totally different ones because we are trying to build a program that has some equity across the district. The second was that if they built a new schedule, it had a 4-day rotation that would align with the high school, so that way we could share staff and resources in a much more efficient manner. And the third was that they did not get a blank check, and they couldn't come asking for dozens of new teachers and tons of new programs that required curriculum and remodeling of the school and all kinds of new equipment, that it had to be economically within reason of what we can do as a district. I told them after that, if you can give me those things, I will support you in any way that I can. And so that's sort of those were their marching orders in 2023. And so I will turn it over to them for what they've done over the course of the last 2.5 years.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and the full board. Happy to be here tonight with Dr. Tracy and Mrs. Burke, and we're very pleased to give you an update of where we are with the new middle school schedule. And so just building on what Dr. Byers just said, the beginning vision of the scheduling work really was focused on giving our students more options and autonomy as we looked at schedules, exposing our students to a greater variety of learning experiences, better meeting the needs of the middle school learner, and preserving the team model, all the while, what Dr. Byers just said, trying to align it to the high school schedule as well.
Thank you. So again, the birth of the new schedule really came about really down to 3 really specific concerns, and the first of which is that limited flexibility. It was very difficult if you have a child that needed something different, like an intervention, like certain services. That child might not get their elective, or that child might not get to go to choir, or might not be able to take art. And the reason for that is because the schedule didn't allow it. There was only so many places that we could provide that intervention. And that we found is not what's always best for kids, in that many of these students excel in those electives. So we're really taking the opportunity for a student who sometimes faces academic challenges and doesn't find as much success. We're taking the areas within the curriculum where they found the most success and saying, we can't fit that in your schedule. Transitions. Currently, as an 8-period day, that's 27 minutes a day where students are in the hallway making transitions. So every 42 minutes, students are getting up and they're moving. That's a significant amount of time. But that in combination with the shorter periods. Currently, our periods are down to 42. Now that wasn't always the case, but over the course of several years, state mandates and other requirements have eroded some of that instructional time. So now we're faced with a 42-minute period, all right? And so assuming that students arrive on time, by the time the teacher can, get everybody settled and get started, you're down closer to a 39-minute period. And teachers work really hard to maximize all that time. They do an awful lot of planning, but if anything goes awry, they might not get to where they want at the end of that period, so things have to carry over to the next day. So having some extra time to really round out those lessons is going to be beneficial for students. The other things that came to my mind with shorter periods is snow days. If you have an altered schedule and we have a 90-minute delay, those periods now become 39 minutes or 38 minutes. So that's a huge impact. The schedule we're proposing would still retain a valuable amount of instructional time, even with the delay. Okay? So now when we talk about the timeline, when this, and I know Dr. Byers, and the timeline starts in 2023, but the real discussion started in 2021. And that's when Dr. Tracy and I and members of the advisory committee met, because currently in 2021, our schedules at the two middle schools were not aligned. The way we ran advisory was not aligned, and our job was to come together and create or align the advisory so that students were having a similar experience in both schools. So that's really where the focus on alignment got its seed. In 2023, we did assemble a scheduling committee made up of teachers and staff members from all disciplines. And really that first year was a year of learning and researching. Reaching out to other DIRGs, learning about scheduling options, and really taking a look at what best practices are and what other schools are doing, both in the DIRG and outside of the DIRG. In 2024-25, we wanted to know more about what the people in our communities felt, which is when we surveyed families, students, and staff. And then we could, taking that information in conjunction with our research, we came up with multiple models over the course of the year, looking at different models that may be available and may be viable. And we shared that work with the assistant superintendent and the superintendent in the summer of 2025. Then the summer of 2024. In October of 2025, we brought the scheduling committee back together based on all the feedback to start narrowing down the choices. By November of 2025, we had built a consensus around a schedule, and we moved forward with the scheduling committee and introduced it to the entire middle school staff, after which point, shortly thereafter, we introduced it to the Board of Education. This is just another view of what our decision-making process was. Again, the idea of building consensus around what we finally moved forward with to the superintendent was very important to the committee. And again, wanted to keep in keeping with Dr. Byers' instructions as far as the operational piece laying within the schools.
So as Ms. Burke just said, we did survey parents, students, and staff members. In those responses, we obviously collated the data and came up with some common themes that showed up across the data. And things that came up out of that were things like restoring and expanding elective options. Prior to COVID, prior to 2020, we had an extensive elective program that 8th graders would take during period 8. So every other day, 8th graders would take electives and choose classes in things like theater and things like art and tech. And all sorts of things. And during COVID, we cohorted, and then for the next year, we went into cohorts, and over time, that got lost. And so there was definitely a large cry to kind of, from the teachers especially, and students that knew, parents that knew, to restore those elective options for students, and the new schedule does that. To maintain advisory and team-based middle school structures, we've been up here and we've talked a lot about the team-based model in middle school, the ability for teachers to kind of restructure their time, to do cooperative activities across a grade level, and to maintain that structure, and to maintain our advisory, which is a period where students aren't graded, they just take time to work with teachers and build relationships, to make sure we maintain that. To ensure equitable access is a little bit about what Mrs. Burke was touching on, that there's students, especially our students with disabilities, or students that have any kind of services, they're blocked out right now of taking electives for the most part, because their elective time is taken with resource room, maybe reading, math, and some other kind of services to help to support them. So the new schedule provides us with places that it's spread out throughout the day to take students out of periods that won't impact their electives. Obviously, there was a big cry for an increase in physical activity in the middle school. Point well taken by Mr. Mann and the people who spoke on behalf of physical education. The need for physical activity for students is definitely something the idea that we all shared. And so this schedule, again, provides for that in the middle school. To optimize instructional time with a focus on class length, and passing time, Ms. Burke just touched on that, to break down the amount of time that students are transitioning. Throughout the course of a day, probably it's at least 12 to 14 times a day. Kids, the bell rings, the kids get up, they go to another class. I've done it over time here in the middle school, or the high school when I was here. I followed a kid for a day. And I've done it in the middle school and followed a kid for a day. It's exhausting. They go through 8 periods and lunch and advisory and an extra period at the end of the day where they can move around and get extra help. It's exhausting to go through that much in a day, and to have to switch gears every 40 minutes. It's not easy to do. This new schedule lengthens the amount of time kids are in class, reduces the amount of periods they'll have in a day, to hopefully bring that into a little bit better focus and provide for more balance. And again, to align the middle school schedule with the high school, in a second I'll show you the next slide. So if you want to do an activity with me here, if you close one eye and put a hand up in front of you, block off the last 4 days, E through H, because if you look at A through D, it'll look very familiar to a lot of people sitting in this room. It's the high school schedule. It is the 6-drop-2 schedule. It follows the exact pattern that the high school follows. There's some things in here that are different time-wise. Our times aren't exactly lined up. Things like lunch, things like advisory, that doesn't really happen at the same time in the high school. So the period times are a little bit different. But if you look, it gets a little complicated, and I'll show you in a second why we have 2 that mirror each other. It's to provide for more time for kids to take electives and for more choice. But those first 4 days, A through D, and then E through H, is just a mirror of A through D. And so here's an example. This is a student that has an ensemble course, so band or choir. And if you see the purple band in the bottom left-hand corner, and that first row, that first column, band. So this student has chosen to take band. You'll see that on A day, they're in band, and that same period, because it's the purple period 6, moves up to block 4 on C and D days. That's just how the schedule works. And on C and D day, you'll see that they have digital media, tech, or art. They get to choose that. They get to choose which one of those courses they want to take for a semester. And then D day, they have band. And then if you go through the rotation again, now start on E day, you'll see they go back to digital media, and then band and digital media. So it allows kids to have kind of a staggered experience, but it also allows them to have a balanced experience. If you look up at the yellow for a second, where it shows PE, so physical education classes. Now in this 8-day rotation, they'll have it 4 times, and 2 periods of health. So this will provide for kids to have more time in physical education, again, remembering that the periods are longer. So over the course of those 8 days, they'll have almost 4 hours of physical education, coupled with some health. Now, we can get creative also with health. We're working with our health educators. They're all dual certified in both physical education and in health. So some of that time in health could also be healthy activities. Things like yoga, things like walking, things like, kind of using the curriculum they have in the classroom and having students use that curriculum to help them have even more activity. So that's a student that, like I said, has band. Here's a student, we just called it an 8th grade student. This was a 7th grade student, we kind of look very similar. This is a student that chose to not take music. Again, one of the things we heard from parents is that in our current schedule, if you don't take Mandarin, you must take music in our current schedule. So that was very limiting for students. It kind of really narrowed them in, that you have no choice but to take either Mandarin or music. This allows students to have other choices. So you'll see that first period. This student in 8th grade, they have more opportunities to select even broader electives, more kind of narrowed electives, more focused electives, like in things like robotics, architecture, art. And again, we're working with our technology teacher this year to start to develop electives for next year. And in the years to come, we'll work with our art teacher to develop even more, and our digital media teacher to develop more focused electives for kids as we kind of build into the years ahead. But these are the courses that kids can choose. So you'll see this student doesn't have any music. Or they might choose in the second half of the year to pick general music. So they'll have half of a year of general music. So if they wanted to take some exposure to some sort of a music course, they'll still have the opportunity to do that and not select an ensemble class like choir and band, which is more of a performance. They have to have the winter concert or the spring concert. So the general music class is just the general exposure to music. And again, you'll see the physical education kind of in the health class scattered throughout the year, throughout the rotation. So here's kind of just a graph that shows a little bit of the difference between what we currently have and what's going to happen in the year ahead. Currently, we just have kids that have to take Chinese or Spanish. And actually, I would put an and in between that, because if you take Chinese, you're also taking Spanish right now. Which again, I've tried to do that with kids. I followed them through that. I don't know how they do that. I don't have any clue how a kid that takes Mandarin has to sit for 42 minutes every single day and listen to Spanish, and then possibly the next period go to Mandarin class and learn Mandarin right after it, and then go to English class after that and learn a third language. So it's very challenging. So by taking the language off the team, it'll allow students to have, again, more choice. Next year, students can choose between Chinese, Spanish, and French if the budget moves forward. Tech, like I said, right now they currently have a tech exploratory. Next year, the 7th grader will still have that same sort of exploratory experience in technology, but the 8th grade gets a more expanded kind of selection of courses to take robotics and architecture. So they've already taken that exposure this year. Mr. Berrien's worked a program that really exposed them to all the different areas in technology. These are the two areas that he found kids are the most jazzed about. This is the thing they want to do. And so he's going to offer those two electives in next year for 8th graders. You'll see the rest there. It's the same year to year, but those offers are going to expand in the years ahead. So 27, 28 will be art, and that's when the art teachers can get together and work collaboratively and start to decide, yeah, we want to offer a course in painting, or we want to offer a course in ceramics. So, and that'll be up to their work and their survey of students to find out what are the things that students are the most interested in. There was a couple of questions. We'll start to get into some of the questions. One of the questions was, how many students are currently take Mandarin per grade, and how would that impact Spanish class sizes? And what about the impact of an additional language offering? So you can see here in 24-25 and 25-26, the numbers, they speak for themselves. There's 39 kids last year that took Mandarin in the 7th grade in orange, 26 that took it in the 8th grade. While at the same time, this year, there's 29 in Chinese and Mandarin in the 7th grade and 42 in the 8th grade. One of the things to kind of keep in mind here is that those numbers are low because it's limited. This is a teacher that's traveling between schools, so there's some contractual kind of constraints of how many kids that teacher can have, and there's an overall constraint how many kids the teacher can have split between the two middle schools. So I guess the kind of the larger statement is that there's not a large impact. It's definitely not enough to say that we need one fewer teacher. It's something that those numbers, and even if we add French next year, the way that French will be added right now was that there'll be 2 sections of students that'll be added in at the 7th grade level to about 11 or so kids per section, so that those students can then move on to the next year in 8th grade and take what's the second half of French, so that when they go to high school, they'll be prepared to go to French too. It's the same kind of sequence that we use for Mandarin and Spanish. If the kids take the 2 years of Spanish in our school, they're prepared for the most part to go to high school and start in Spanish too if they choose. They take the 2 years of Mandarin in middle school, they'd be prepared to go to the high school and take Chinese too in high school.
And I think just to add on to one other thing Dr. Tracy said, this was a question that a board member asked, was about French. How many kids would that impact? And like Dr. Tracy said, the most it would be is 22 kids less in Spanish or Chinese. And then another question was, and hopefully any questions that we got, we embedded throughout the presentation, and then we just wanted to be explicit with a few of these, but one of the questions was, can we make the schedule shift without as many headcount additions? In other words, additional FTEs. And the answer is yes, and we don't want to, because we heard loud and clear that our kiddos really wanted another world language option in their schedule. We certainly cannot move forward with French next year and not fill that FTE. We would still need, and I know Dr. Byers explained this at the beginning, but we would still absolutely need the additional PE health teacher in each building. And then we just threw in on that last bullet here, but just in doing a little research around other districts in our DIRG, majority offered French and Spanish, and 5 districts offered 3 or more languages to their middle school kiddos.
And that was one of the things we really talked about both in the committee work and saw in the survey work, is that one of the main roles of a middle school is to help to prepare our students for the things that they're going to encounter at the high school. Having been here myself at the high school, I was here in the high school for 10 years, and I see, now that I'm in the middle school, see the benefit of the students having exposure to these sort of things. Like, we have students right now that have come to the high school and haven't been exposed to French at all, because we don't offer it in the middle school. And so to kind of broaden those, and that goes the same for the electives, to broaden those elective courses that kids can take will only help to prepare them for what they're gonna encounter. And that's kind of when I kind of hinted to the technology course being restructured. It was restructured in a way that Mr. Berrien, our technology teacher, and Damien, Mr. Stratton over in Orange, worked with the high school teachers in the CTE department to say, what are the things we should be exposing kids to in the middle school so they're prepared to take the broader and kind of deeper dive when they get to the high school. So the same kind of goes for this language. So a timeline for implementation. By February 10th, the level recommendations for students entering 8th grade are due. By the 27th, language preferences, life arts preferences for 8th grade. So the 8th grade preferences will be taken into consideration and whether or not students are choosing to take an ensemble course. By March 27th, the 7th grade will start to put in their information. On March 4th, I have a meeting with the incoming 7th graders. I meet with their parents. I show them what they're doing, and right around that same time, I think Kathy's doing the same day, and right around that same time too, whether it's the week before or the week after, we go and we meet, the principals and the school counselors go and meet with all the elementary school kids. We go and visit the schools, which is pretty fun. They all raise their hands, which is neat, because they don't normally do that when they get older. It's fun. By April 10th, we have to start to schedule our special education students that need special services, and our teachers, to make sure that we have their schedules correct. And then by August 18th, the families will have access to the schedules in Power School. Again, like I said, 6th and 7th grade meetings are going to be happening starting on March 4th. Well, that's our parent orientation night at both schools. Mid-March or so, counselors meet with the elementary school students. And then in August, we have another contact with those incoming students coming in from into 7th grade. We have an open house at each of the schools where we have a tour, we review the schedule, students can go and open their lockers. That's a big stress in middle school. And then we have a big student gathering outside where the students can get to know each other. Especially in Bethany, it's a big deal because they're coming from 2 different places. In Orange, they're coming from different elementary schools too, but it's good for them to get together and start to gather as a class.
So hopefully we were able to convey to you the benefits of the new schedule, increase in instructional time across all disciplines,
increase in choice and voice in life arts for our 7th graders, our elective opportunities for our 8th grade students, allowing for preference of world language, maintaining the daily advisory period, increasing time for physical activity, enhancing the ability to share resources across the district, that's a big one. Maintaining our team model, which we really value, and it's great for kids. Decreasing the need for special schedules and the number of transitions throughout the day, and providing a more equitable access to learning opportunities for all students.
We wanted to just show you quickly here, this was in the first presentation too, but kind of a timeline of what we've been doing and then kind of what we will be doing moving forward. So obviously those first few, I think the first 5 or so we talked about throughout here. These were kind of the things that helped to drive what we were doing. The reimagined academic success, we've gone over that last time. This win block is pretty much the same thing as academic success with a little bit more focus on what students, it's what I need now. It's a period where students figure out what they need now and they either go get help, they get extra support, students might get extra services there, and it'll, again, provide that time for students to get the service and not take away from their electives. Courses in CTE this year, we're starting to build those electives, and then you can see as you look down these check marks where we'll be and when we'll be developing the other electives in the other content areas that we have in the life arts department at school. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Byers, any other comments before we? Okay, I'd like to open it to questions from our board members. We'll go from side to side, so Donna?
Okay, so survey, when you sent a survey out to the parents about this, and I guess that was in 25 or 24 or something like that?
Yes.
Can you talk about the amount of response you got and how many people it reached in the 3 towns and what was, I wanted to know more about the results of that.
Yeah, so we sent it out via my newsletter to the families, so it should reach everyone that reads the newsletter.
So it was in the newsletter?
In my newsletter, yeah. The links were in the newsletter sent out to the families. There was a separate email, I think, that was sent also.
And then there was also a separate independent email that
standalone
went.
email.
Standalone
And then
email.
included it in the weeks after, so that parents would still see it probably for another 3 weeks or so after we sent that original email.
So it went out like 3 different times, really, from what you're saying. And what were the results from that then? Do you have any idea of how many people responded back from that?
Yep, so we had 69 responses, which if you take into the number of students is kind of right around the 20% level, which is what we would be considered a good response rate for a survey.
Okay. So the next question I had is, so you're saying the kids are transitioned 27 minutes a day roughly? Okay, so how is that different now? What's the minutes now for the new schedule? Like how many minutes did we fix that?
There'll be 6 transitions, 7 transitions at 3 minutes of transition. 21 minutes?
21?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's
so
a
it's
rough
about
estimate.
6, okay, so just.
And 27 might be, so if there's 8 periods, there's 7 times they're in the hallway, plus advisory, plus lunch. It's probably more like 10 times that they're in the hallway a day at 3 minutes, so it's more like 30 minutes and change.
Classes on the new schedule, about how long?
57 minutes.
My other thing is that I noticed on one of the charts, you were comparing this year to next year and the changes that's going to happen, and you had a lot of subjects. I didn't see PE in there. Can you talk about that? Like, I'm confused about if we're losing PE, but now you're saying we're gaining PE.
Well, we're talking about the middle school. I think that the concerns have been raised about.
Is that the high school we're talking about? Oh, okay, got it. So, all right, good. That's good news. Okay.
Actually, if you netted out the number of hours that are being lost from the high school are exactly equivalent within a couple minutes to the number of hours being gained at the middle school.
Okay, so
the net is 0.
Okay. And that's true for art, like art classes? How is that different with this schedule?
It just offers more choice.
So, okay.
In that if a student is musical and wants to, focus on music and they don't really have an interest in art, they can take band and they can choose from other electives. Let's say they want a technology elective, or so they can take a technology elective, and just, they don't have, we're not pigeonholing them, saying you have to, you only have one choice.
Where now they set a certain time for, like, everyone's taking art, music, and that, so now it's, so some kids might not have any drawing in middle school, for example.
Right.
But they choose to have music instead, so
Right.
that's significant difference, okay. I guess the other piece was, your staff. You said, does it look like the staff in your middle school was very involved in this process? And so how is that in terms of feedback? Are they accepting of this new schedule? Are they liking the new schedule? Like, what's the feedback on the staff now that it's established and everything?
I think it's mixed. I mean, no one likes change. Change is tough, and leading people through change is my job, and Ms. Burke's job. And so we listen when it comes up, and I think that after we have time where we sit and we talk, we have meetings, fears, misconceptions, and kind of, the fears of change usually get a lot. They get put aside, and people start to realize that there's some benefits to this. What are the benefits to this? Again, with any change, there's always a loss. Somebody's gonna feel some sort of a loss, whether it's a loss of something they love to do or a loss of the way that it used to be. But again, I think we have to take a step back from that, look at what's most beneficial for kids. And then my job is to help to lead the teachers to understand that what's most beneficial for kids might feel a little uncomfortable, but we'll get used to it, because we've done that before.
And we fully acknowledge that no schedule is perfect. There is no perfect schedule. When you have almost 400 kids, getting perfection is impossible. But the fact that, when we talk about the changes in education and the kinds of demands kids were asking or putting on students, it did require a serious look at how they're spending their day. And is there an investment or a change that needs to be made to really meet the needs of the way students are learning and the options students have today? Because this schedule that we're talking about has been around a very long time. A very long time.
Thank you.
It's not to say it's not.
So I was one of the people who's been pushing for years, saying, well, when is this change coming? But I come into this meeting and I have representatives of 2 of our 3 pillars saying that we're making a mistake. And we always, every time I come into these meetings, I say, trust the experts. And I'm concerned that we did a really great survey in the beginning, and we maybe didn't circle back to the people who have to implement it and say, how is this going to impact our students? What did we miss? Because we are all imperfect. And no schedule is perfect, no person is perfect. And I'm very concerned that we are going to have some unintended consequences. Right now, AMSB is is an amazing school. Were we top 5 in the state last year? And we're making a change that may hurt it. And so I'm concerned that, do we have a plan to go back to the teachers and say, maybe we need to tweak this? Art, for example, saying, not being able to do a deep dive into the topics that we're seeing. And this is just 2 of our areas. Have we got the feedback from tech, from all the other teachers, and said, what do we think about this? What do we need to do? What did we miss? And that's a concern. So what's the feedback that we're getting?
Again, it is mixed. I think that, again, to Jason's point, change is difficult. And there may be unintended consequences, but with any major change, that's to be expected.
To be honest, ultimately, once we broke down all of the feedback from the families, the things that we wanted to do, and then my big, you cannot make this too expensive, there were really only 2 viable schedules that we could come up with that wouldn't require an addition of at least 6 teachers. So we sort of went with those 2 schedules, this one requiring the addition of 3 teachers, which is already a big ask. And we brought those back to the scheduling committee. They met for a long time looking at pros and cons of both of those. And unanimously said this is the one that's going to fit the needs that we all identified and accomplishes more of the things that we wanted to accomplish than option number 2. And we asked them to poke the holes in it. What did we not see? What are we forgetting? Which they did, and then we sort of made some of those tweaks and adjustments because they're the ones who are living it. But we spent a good half day with them doing exactly that. But again, I don't want to make it sound like we had a whole lot of choices. When we started to get down to cost, there were really only a couple of options that were not going to be, sort of off the charts.
Well, we all want, whenever we think about, getting our 3 wishes, we always think that it's the benefit, but we don't think about the cost. And you said maybe our schedule as is better than what we're putting in. And I almost wonder, should we look at asking the staff, would you rather, is this better? Is it better?
That kind of was option 2.
Okay.
Option 2 was a very small change right on what we currently have.
But I think the kind of, again, to be very candid, the mask-off moment is we're underserving a group of students that aren't getting electives. They're not getting a choice to be exposed to anything. And I think we really need to take a good look at our heart about that. And that's kind of where I am. I think, people that know me well enough to know I lead with my heart. That's what I do. And I've done that since I've stepped foot in this district 18 years ago. And the option to stay the way we are right now, to me personally, is not an option. Because there's a group of students that get nothing out of it. They don't get a language, they don't get an elective, they don't get to go to band, they don't get to have fun. So I agree with you, Pat, that Amity Bethany, I love it. I waited 10 years to get back to that school. Only that school. And there's a lot of reasons why. And I think we really need to take a look at that, and that's why, I'm willing to step out on a limb and make this change. And yeah, there could be things that we are unforeseen pitfalls. I was here when we went from the straight 7 to the drop 6, the drop 2 schedule. I built the first schedule at the high school in that schedule, and there were things that we did not see. And I went back to John Brady with my hat in my hand and said, we need to kind of come up with, we added bio labs also that year. I said, we made a mistake, we need another bio teacher. And we had to find the money to do it. But it was the right thing to do, because we were adding biology labs and we were expanding our offerings for kids, and we were going to the new schedule. So I was there, I built that first schedule. So yeah, is there something we don't know right now? Yes, I guarantee it. But this is the best, that we can do, and I think it's the right direction.
Okay, thank you. Megan, next.
I have a couple of questions and just wanted to start with a comment. One, in the timeline process, I guess just kind of sharing some of the sentiments that we heard earlier tonight is, I think the board asked for this presentation tonight because we didn't feel we had been presented to about the middle school schedule. I know it was included on the timeline, but just so everyone is aware, that was part of a budget overview presentation where like 12 different departments presented over the course of 5 or 10 minutes, and the board didn't get to ask any or at all questions. So this is a much more substantive presentation, and it came out of the fact that this shift was going to add significant headcount and is a big driver of the budget this year. So we wanted to better understand it and kind of help potentially you guys think through different options and alternatives. My first question is, I know it was news to me at the last Board of Ed meeting about the fact that academic success is the same period for everyone right now really stretches special ed resources thin because everybody needs services at the same time. As a suggestion, could a potential interim solution, or we talked at the AFC meeting about, is there a way to kind of like step implement this? Like, is a potential solution to make that part of the rotation so every team isn't having it at the same time? And then you effectively, I think, maybe have this win solution at different times and everybody isn't looking for resources at the same time.
Yeah, that's in the new schedule, that it is. Win is staggered throughout the day.
I understand that, but I'm saying like, you don't have to change the schedule to do that. You could just make it part of the rotation that it isn't right now, right?
There isn't a period right now.
No, there's academic success at the end of every day right now.
Period, because it's switched with an elective.
Not today, not, my kids have academic success every single day.
It's at the end of the day, every day.
It's at the end of the day, every day.
Mixed with
It
world
was
language,
switched with
right?
an elective prior to COVID.
Okay.
That's maybe what you're thinking about.
But just a suggestion as a, potentially it achieves some of the goals without necessarily necessitating costing things at the high school and requiring a significant number of FTE additions. And I'm curious if the de-leveling that was implemented this year, did that increase the limitation of the group of students not being able to access services and having to lose out on their electives?
I wouldn't think it, I think it would actually give us more places to put kids.
Okay.
And be able to spread them out more. It added more flexibility to the schedule.
Okay.
We still run into it with math, because math does limit us. But yeah, opening it up and de-leveling across the board helped to kind of add more flexibility where we could put kids.
And then can you go to the slide with the Spanish head count or the language head count? So if we just look at, for example, AMSO grade 7 right now. So right now, all kids who take Mandarin also have to take Spanish. So if we transition effectively, if, say we put the new schedule in place this year, you would immediately lose 39 kids from Spanish, correct? So you'd go from.
Not necessarily, because we don't know if they're taking it because they dislike music that much that they take it by default, or if they're taking it because they really want to take Mandarin.
Gotcha. Okay.
It also could be higher, that was gonna be my
Well,
comment.
that was my thought, is that
You
it
could lose
could
half the
potentially-
kids in Spanish to the other two, right? Sorry, I just figured,
No,
rather than have a second.
Can't do that, though.
I
Sorry.
had the exact same thought, which is that right now, if kids aren't given a language choice, essentially, they're given a opt-out of music, potentially. So the Chinese number might go up, and then if you add French, I'm just looking at, there's 170 kids in Spanish right now in 7th grade. Let's assume all 40 or 39 leave, now you're down to 131. Then you add French, and you're saying roughly maybe 20 kids might take French, so you're down to 110. There's 2 Spanish teachers in 7th grade, how many sections do they teach?
They would teach 5.
Each?
Yes.
So you're talking 10 to 11 kids in a class, like, is that normal for world language?
No, and so I think at that, but, you know, and certainly I think there would be opportunity for reductions via attrition as we see, but right now, not knowing kind of the reason behind why kids take the Mandarin and not knowing where the interest level for French will be. I mean, we could be having a totally different conversation 3 years from now where we need to add Mandarin and French teachers and reduce Spanish because there's a balance in choice, but we don't have those options. And I think until we have those options, we don't know how it plays out.
So I guess, again, kind of as a potential, like, rather than do this all at once, especially given there seems to be a lot of objection from groups that you want buy-in from, not least of which are staff, that maybe the answer is you just pull language out and give the choice. You see where the first phase of impact is before we add more FTEs and another option. And then you don't have to take away from the high school this year. You can start to see kind of how where the impacts from this shift are. So rather like ripping off a Band-Aid and doing it all at once, like, are there options to leg into it to gain more data, to make more informed decisions, I guess is kind of where I'm going with it.
And I would say, yes, there's always options, but I mean, you just sat through AFC, it's not even clear how many FTEs are palatable.
Right.
And so without that, we can't make clear decisions until we know how many FTEs in the budget are actually going to be palatable by the towns and by the board. Once we have that, then we know what options we have to work with.
Dana and then Donna.
I just want to understand too, because I had a gym kid, so I don't want to see Jim be affected. I also had an IEP kid who, from what I remember, when you say you're not serving a group, is it the IEP kids? Because I remember him being able to take his electives in middle school. He didn't take a language because that was not an option. And some kids with IEPs really can't take electives. But this is a side note. He has to take a language in college. And so what's offered to him is sign language, which is so much better for a kid with an IEP. So I just want to understand, because I do remember, I can't tell you verbatimly, but I remember him being able to take, I know he took gym, because he would have protested. And I really feel like he took art and music. So is it just the language that these kids can't take because of the current schedule?
Again, I don't know particulars of his situation, but some students are taken out of language via their IEP or via the PPT meeting process, but there's also students that aren't, and when they aren't, because right now it's not elective. Right now it's part of the core. It's part of the 5 core classes that kids take. And so when it's a core, that's the last thing. And it's not taken out during the PPT meeting, then it's mandatory. And then the things that get taken from those students, that group, that's the group I was talking about, they lose their electives.
And it also depends on the level of service that they're getting and how many different teachers they have to see to meet the requirements of the IEP, and how many times a week they see.
That's the only thing too. I mean, maybe I'm not a good.
It's very individual.
Right.
Very individual.
And our situation might have been unique, but he had no problem getting help in academic success. We would talk about it the night before. This is what I'm gonna do in academic success tomorrow, and he would get it done. So I don't know what's changed, but he had no problem with it. And then transition over to the high school, he had his study halls and he got his help in the study halls. He never had to miss, other than the language, but we took that out because it wasn't a good option for him. So I just want to understand, was there a big change that these kids are not able to get? Are they still taking, gym in middle school?
Okay. Donna?
Thanks.
And I have Carol online too, so we're gonna get people, gonna try and finish up within 10 or 15 minutes, so.
So for those of us who have children in middle school, 3 gone through the middle school, 1 currently in the middle school. There's 8 periods now. You're asking to drop 2. It greatly impacts, from what I see, that kids aren't getting math every day. They're not getting world language every day. They're not getting instruction every day, which I'm not sure if it's really age appropriate in attention span to increase the class time from 42 to 57 minutes. But so, like Patrick, I have been waiting for this schedule. I've heard all about it. We're going to revamp the middle school schedule. Because our middle school currently has a junior high model, we're going to go to more of a middle school model. But I'm actually seeing a high school model, not a middle school model. So it's different than what I was expecting. And I asked for the survey data. So the results, and I interpreted a little differently than you guys interpreted it, but that's something a little different. I do see value in feedback from stakeholders. I also agree change is hard, but I'm not hearing positive things, and that's why I think we should close the feedback loop and get it. And I like the idea, Megan's idea, also of slow, no impact. Just let's see what happens when we actually allow language choice, which we don't at all, which is very true. I'm not sure how we're not serving kids who have special needs. That's a whole other thing. From what I'm hearing, they can get what they need, and we can probably make little impact. I do see value in what we heard tonight in public comment, so I have a high level of concern about the proposed changes at this point, just in the interest of time.
Thank you. Thank you. Suitor, after you, Carol. Okay.
Yeah. So just wanted to follow up on what Donna was asking as well. So we were going to 57 minutes, and I see the point of having too many disruptions. People need continuity to learn. But at the same time, I was wondering how the average middle school student's attention span is. Like, do we have norms around what happens in other districts? What's the average time for a period in other schools?
In the research, it ranged depending on whether they had a block schedule or similar to what we have, or a more traditional 8-period day. Some have 9-period days, so there was a wide range.
Oh, so that's what I was trying to understand.
81-minute classes are 100 and, 90-something minutes.
So there are.
There's variation amongst districts.
And comparable schools like ours have.
There's not a lot of comparable, right? We have to compare to 7-8.
Yes.
Which really limits us to a lot of schools. And we saw schools like, for example, we looked at Cheshire. They have a lot of choice, a ton of choice. There's a lot of different kids can pick different paths. And so it's kind of, we took a lot from all these different schools that we looked at, but, and again, tried to make it so that our schedule in the middle school would be best mirrored to the high school schedule so that we can share resources should we need to.
My only thought was that if the attention span is there, the gain in extra academic time is actually not insignificant, right? Like you're talking about 9 minutes a day, 45 minutes, which is quite significant in my mind. The only countervailing force was like, yeah, do kids have the capacity to sit? And if they do, then it's additional value.
Well, they're not sitting.
Meaning studying.
We're doing a lot of things, building thinking classrooms. There's a lot of new things going on instructionally in the classrooms where the teacher teaches, then the kids get up and do some work together, then they go back and sit down, and there's the days when we were taught, when I was taught, when a teacher stood and spoke to the class. That's not really how a middle school class. I actually judge the success of my classes when I walk by with how loud they are. If they're loud and they're talking, that's good. I want to hear loudness in middle school.
And while some have said that, not having it every day is not, I'm not entirely convinced that is, sometimes a little break and then you come back is actually probably healthy for learning as well. So I don't want to completely buy into that, but I just was curious as to. Thank you.
Carol?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. So am I right that I heard that this adds an extra 9 minutes to each of the periods, the fee schedule?
Correct.
Yes.
No, 15.
Okay.
15.
So I guess I'll comment and then questions. I'm wondering if it's developmentally appropriate for us to align the middle school schedule with the high school schedule. There's a big shift from elementary school to middle school. And I don't know if aligning it with the high school schedule is necessarily the way to go. I also wondered how this schedule shift maps to the new curriculum that's being developed, and if it aligns with current instructional strategies. So yeah, those are my questions.
Any comments?
So I think as far as curriculum goes, Carol, and that's a really good question. We're doing a lot of work within our departments looking at scope and sequence, and looking at current curriculum and what are the instructional shifts for both teaching and also planning practices for teachers. So we're giving a lot of collaboration and vertical alignment time within departments. And then anything new, for example, like Dr. Tracy said with the tech teachers, they're developing new curriculum, so they're keeping in mind that 57-minute block.
If I can just make a comment about the length of the periods. And again, I know as an elementary principal, every one of my teachers, K-2, had a 2-hour English language arts block. 2 hours. And we're talking 57 minutes. And they were all required to have a 60-minute math block. So I am not concerned about the length of time for a period. It's what the teachers do within that period of time to keep kids engaged. That's the important part. But just measuring things by a length of time, it doesn't necessarily, I just don't want people to think that there's something buried in that longer class period, that somehow it's not going to be developmentally appropriate for the students. When I can say with absolute confidence, coming out of the elementary schools, they are probably experiencing longer blocks of time in some of those core content areas than what we offer at the middle and high school level.
But they're having it every day. To me, that's the part that I'm questioning if it's developmentally appropriate, not necessarily the block of time, but are they getting core instruction in things like math and reading every day?
Okay. Other questions? Donna?
No, it was just, we had curriculum today, and our meeting ended. I was just getting ready to ask a question, so it's relevant to this. And we started talking about how French would be implemented and the curriculum being written. And the understanding I heard is that we won't have a French curriculum, but we'll write it as we go. Did I misunderstand that?
Well, we actually have a French curriculum, because French 1
For
is
middle
already,
school.
well, French 1 is already written. And so that teacher would work with the French teacher, and we would look at that curriculum, and then we would revise as appropriate for the middle school.
For the middle school. So we
Yes.
don't have a middle school, that was my question. So we don't have a middle
No,
school
'cause we don't have a
French
course,
curriculum.
so no,
Right.
not yet.
And we've done that before. When we added digital media, remember, we added the class, but we had to write the curriculum as we were adding the class. That's not out of the ordinary once we sort of set onto the path.
So that was
And the nice part with French is we do have French 1, we just have to figure out how to stretch it out over a 2-year sequence as opposed to a single-year sequence.
So that was my question, because the meeting was abruptly ended, so.
No, that's a good
Okay.
question. And keep in mind too, it would just be the 7th grade to start with, so we would just have to worry about 1 year to start with anyway.
What would happen to 8th grade?
Well, we are
Next year.
offering French to 8th graders until the following year. Right,
So they get 2 languages to choose from, 8th. Just
Yes.
just
Yes.
clarifying.
Yeah, just because of the shared staff.
Okay. Anybody? All right. I want to thank you. I know I learned an awful lot today. On the other side of the coin, I think there are more questions that have been raised, and I know you guys are working at what our most important goal is, to provide the best education for our students. And I'd like to, as we go into the next area on our agenda, I'd like board members to consider the unique dual role that we serve in on a regional school district board of education. Clearly, I know we all agree that our goal is to provide the best education possible. On the other side of the coin, in doing that, we have to consider the taxpayer. I know we get pushback locally, but if you remember, we have our own district voting on our budget. This means that if we believe something is important, even with the pushback from our local area boards of finance, local boards of selectmen, we believe it's most important to have those to provide outstanding education for our students, we need to hold our ground and make sure that those are places that are taken and used as they should be, and give that to our voters to determine. So when the vote goes to the district, even though the boards of finance may not be all too happy with it, it's going to be the district voters, school district voters, that are ones that are determining, and we have a job to convince them this is what is most important about how we educate our students. In talking about this budget, I think I did have a concern, and I mentioned it at our last meeting, and I'd like to raise that question and a little bit of an addition to it. One of our speakers today spoke about, in addition to losing some PE time, changes that would have to be made in other areas, electives, time. Has all of that stuff been addressed? I assume it is, if you brought it to us. How's that going to work? And, you know, that's part of my question as we look at this PE problem. And if it works and it gives our students everything that they need, I'd feel more comfortable than just saying, okay, we're taking away these hours of PE. Because I know we're a small group sitting here talking about it, but if it was any other subject, English, science, social studies, psychology, there would be a lot more people here saying you can't take away 18 hours. And when you talk about 18 hours, you're not only talking about 18 hours for a whole year, you're talking about classes that don't meet every day. So it's even a greater percentage of time than you would think. So that's my question. Is there something being done with the budget to cover all of these areas? I know I heard possible physical educational electives, but wouldn't that require more time and space and other things that are being done?
So do you want me to answer that?
Yes,
now?
please.
So, yes, so we know that some of the biggest changes with any of this would require the curriculum writing time, which Dr. Perry Carlson is already accounting for, that we would need curriculum time to work on some of those changes. A couple of the other, and again, I think I'm just gonna focus on the 10th and 11th grade PE because that's where the 18 and a half hours in question are coming from. So those PE classes are stacked opposite science labs right now. And it works out for about 2/3 of our kids that the science and the PE line up. What would happen is if we have the PE on a semester basis, then when science labs aren't happening, there would be open spots. Some kids would go into study hall, which they do already. 1/3 of our kids already go into study hall. But what we could also do is use those open spots for students who require special education services, who are taking study skills as an elective course. If their IEP hours are appropriate to meeting off of the science labs, those could actually be built in science. It works for about 1/3 of our special education students, and it would actually open up a block of electives for them that they haven't been able to take. So not unlike kind of the same challenge that we face in the middle school schedule. The other option is for some students who have interest in music. They currently are missing opportunities for some of the ensembles. And in conversations with our department chair, we would be able to have students participate in ensembles during some of those off-lab days that they aren't already able to access. Currently, right now, we have personal finance in 10th grade. It's sort of where it fits in terms of scheduling. It's a semester-long class. We would probably be able to loosen that up. So if you have a semester of either 10th grade PE or 11th grade PE, there could be we could put personal finance opposite it in either of those years, which would open students up to some more elective opportunities there. I haven't flushed this one through yet, but if we offered the PE for upper grade students, 11 and 12, as a choice between grade 11 and 12, I'm not a huge proponent of putting a graduation requirement in 12th grade year in case kids mess up. But for kids who really want to have an extra block to sort of bolster their resume with additional AP classes, they could delay PE to their 12th grade year, potentially, and then open up an entire year-long course where they would be able to add another academic course if they are really looking to, and face it, our 11th grade kids like to create very nice transcript resume builders as they look at their college applications. So there is a benefit there. Mr. Hauser, any other benefits that I'm not missing off the top of my head?
One odd one, when we were talking about the possibility of reducing PE staffing at the high school, is by going to semester classes, there's actually the possibility for those students who really do love physical education, we may be able to afford to create a limited number of sections, perhaps 3, 4, 5, something like that, of senior electives in phys ed, so that instead of the current student will get phys ed every year through junior year, we may be able to open up the option of phys ed right through senior year with some choice electives that we could develop and offer. Overall, our count on what we expect to have happen in terms of flexibility for electives for the typical student. Now, of course, every student's schedule is a little bit different, their needs are a little bit different, but we anticipate somewhere between a break even on the number of elective options that they'll have to an increase of about a half a credit of available time to take electives for many of our students.
And I think it's just illustrative of the exact same challenge we just talked about with the middle school. There is no schedule that is perfect. All the benefits that we could get from semester-long PE are currently limitations in the structure we have. The time we lose by making PE semester-long is sort of one of the things that is limiting some of those other options. It's just, again, it's just a trade-off. There's going to be pros and cons to every single one of the decisions that we make.
Okay, Jen?
Could you tell us what the price difference would be if we did PE at both? If the middle school schedule goes forward the way that it's planned with the additional PE, but we keep what's at the high school, how much more would that cost?
Okay,
in the budget?
So let's assume that nothing else that I have to tell you about tonight's budget happens, because we have some bad news.
Yeah, just the PE.
But if we were solely to not have made that FTE reduction that got us to the 1.54, the budget would have been 1.71% increase over current year.
So 0.2-ish%?
Yes.
About a $200,000 increase.
No, about
Or 150?
150?
150, I think, yeah, so $150,000.
So, Jen, I had someone proposed a question to me. Right now, just for clarification, the gym at the high school, the PE class is all year and it's science lab, right?
And for about 2/3 of our kids so they have it 2 days a week, and then the other day, because remember one day drops, the other day is the science lab.
And those who aren't in science lab are taking study hall?
Yes.
Is that what I heard? Okay, I just want to make sure I heard the right thing. So the question was if we move to a semester course for PE, then will it further limit access to full year honors, AP, arts and music courses? Because those are at a full year, unless you offer everything in a semester.
So we already have a good number of semester-long classes, and it would actually, by putting it at the semester level, open up another place where students could take those semester-long courses.
Okay. All right, I can, if they're watching, they'll hear yours.
Okay. Other questions? Jen, do you want to give us the bad news?
Yeah, so this is the meeting where I'm supposed to run through the budget. And so I've already abbreviated the presentation. Any slide that you already saw last Monday, I've sort of pulled out, except a little bit to tell the story. And if you remember correctly, all right. There we go. Part of the responsibility at this time of the year is to go through and review the achievements of the district. So this is the part that usually takes like a good half hour, so I am going to go quickly through this so that we can get to the actual budget piece in the interest of saving time. But just a reminder that we have fantastic academics, lots of opportunities for AP and courses and our honors courses. We know we've been increasing our dual enrollment courses and have essentially increased that by really went from about 50 kids 2 years ago to over 400 kids now participating in dual enrollment. We have lots of recognition at the national level through national merit. You guys always congratulate those students. Our AP performance, we actually continue to increase on the percentage of students who are achieving a 3 or higher or in the 4 and 5 band. We do very well at both the state and national level in academic competitions, in national exams. Portrait of the Graduate continues to become embedded in the work that we do with our POG Day. We have lots of different opportunities right now for STEAM and innovation, particularly through our science research program. Many of you know about the STEAM Day that we do in conjunction with our elementary districts. And we certainly have excellence in our staff and our leadership team with our Teachers of the Year and the recognition that's given to our staff either from parents or from their own peers. 96% of our students graduate within the 4-year period. The vast majority of them head on to college, most of them attending 4-year schools. As of right now, we've had close to, over 3,000 applications submitted for the current class of 2026, with slightly shy of 500 who are reporting admission already. In terms of athletics, again, higher amount of participation in both the middle and the high school. We offer a wide variety of sports, and particularly at the high school level, but also a fairly robust middle school program as well as a unified program. We get recognition at both the conference level for our team performance as well as in state tournaments. And our coaches and athletes also receive accolades across the conferences and the state. In terms of arts, our third pillar, we have success at state level competitions in the musical arts. We also do a tremendous number of district-wide performances between the middle schools and the high school. Our visual arts also participate in state and juried recognition and earn honors at both the state and national level, as well as putting on community exhibitions, typically at the libraries across our 3 towns. And then our performing arts, we do offer our musicals at both middle school levels as well as the high school play and musical, and it continues to receive state recognition through the Sondheim Awards. So budget overview. So again, your charge by statute is to create an estimated per pupil expenditure for the next fiscal year, stressing that word estimate because so much of what starts in September can change by the September that the school year actually begins. When we develop the budget, we keep in mind the mission of the board as well as those 3 goals. The second one is the one that Mr. Davis alluded to, that we want to make efficient and effective use of our resources, knowing that we do have taxpayers that we answer to, but at the same time, we do have the goals to improve our instructional programming and to foster a supportive climate for our students. We're also guided by our Portrait of the Graduate, which again is kind of our beacon of what we want to develop and make sure our students leave the district with so that they can be successful whether they choose college or career as their post-secondary option. We're getting to the bottom, so you've seen this slide before, but we are almost at the point where the board will have an adopted budget and it stops being my budget and becomes your budget. Which again is something that you have to then convince our voters is what's right for the children of our district. So this is where we stood as of last Monday at the 1.54% increase. So you can see the difference between the current year budget and the proposed budget, what the impact is to the town and the percent increase for each of the individual towns, as well as the change in revenue, which just as a reminder is primarily coming through what we are expecting for excess costs for special education. Our budget is very personnel or people heavy, so the salaries and benefits really occupy about 2/3 of the budget, and that is all of the staff that we employ to keep our schools open and running for our students. Our budget drivers, again, it's contracts, it's medical benefits, it's the goals of the strategic plan, the significant decline in debt service, transportation technology, special education, personnel, the stable enrollment, which really doesn't allow for reductions, and then some unfunded, the potential for unfunded state mandates and uncertainty in federal revenue, although we actually do have a better picture of that with the approval of the spending package. And so at our February 23rd meeting, I will have a slide ready for you about what changed in terms of federal funding, so where we would expect to see shifts and how that might impact our budget. Because we really won't know until they actually give us money. So in terms of contractual increases versus budget increases, so our contracts for salaries are going up at about 3.87%. for the 26-27 budget, whereas the budget request is at 1.54. So when you see that deviation, it means those reductions are coming from other areas. Health insurance, this is one of the big changes. So we, in the budget proposal, we estimated health insurance would be 14% higher next year than it is this current year. When you look at the finance part of the packet, you'll see that we are running at 107% of our health insurance costs at the moment. So Brown & Brown, who came here in November, is advising us, and I like how they say things, it's several points higher than the current 14% estimate. What several points higher means, Terry and I have no idea. They will have a more definitive number for us within the next, say, week to week and a half. So we'll know before February 23rd what that several points is. We have sort of calculated out and estimated that if it's like $100,000 higher, that's gonna bring the budget up to about 1.75% increase. If it's $200,000 higher, we're looking at 1.9. So that's gonna factor into this because it's certainly, any change, it's not gonna be 1.54 unless we make some other changes in the budget itself. Because we know that that health insurance is likely to go up. So that was the really bad news part. We do have our strategic priorities, and the three that are highlighted in yellow: having a better middle school schedule, having increased opportunities for dual enrollment, and then the curriculum implementation support are also driving personnel requests. Debt service is decreasing by almost 42%, so you can see the difference between the current fiscal year and the upcoming fiscal year at the top. And 27-28 is where we would expect, if we go out to bond, we would start to see the bond debt come back on board to this chart. So this is not exactly accurate if we have a bond referendum that's successful and we start some of those larger capital projects. Transportation, just by way of just giving some information, it's going up at 8.36% for the next school year. You can see that where our transportation costs increase the most are going to be in the special education runs and in the activity runs. So our contracts with our bus companies for just like the morning pickup and the morning or the evening, afternoon drop-off, those are pretty consistent. We negotiate them with Bethany and Woodbridge school districts. They're predictable, they're fixed, and those are the lower percent increases. The bus companies get to set the rates for special education runs and for the activity runs, and so we tend to see higher increases in those two areas. But overall, it's just shy of 8.5%. Technology, again, I won't belabor this, you've heard it a lot, but we do have student devices for every one of our students. Those come with the need for the software for running those devices. We also have our special labs, our Promethean or display boards like these, and then all of our security cameras within our technology area. Pupil services, again, you've seen this chart from Mr. Brandt's presentation. Pupil services covers a lot. It is not just special education, but it's a long list of everything that we are responsible for doing. Our enrollment in pupil services or in special ed has been going up. I know I showed this chart as part of the presentation on last Tuesday. What's different about this chart and the one from last week, two things, is one, it didn't include 504 students. 504 students require accommodations in school, but they don't get the same type of funding from the federal Department of Education to help offset the cost of that. The other thing is that this only runs through 25-26. So if you remember from last week, we actually have a big spike of students coming in the 26-27 year in special education. So this chart looks a little more flat, I would say, than the one that I showed last week that really just looks at special ed students and adds the increase for the upcoming fiscal year. There are a couple things within pupil services that we have to have and we don't really have any control over them. Like I mentioned, transportation is a huge cost within pupil services, and you can see that the average percent increase is going up from 7.5% to 15.5% for the next year. Tuition for out-of-district placements also has a significant increase from about 4% to 14%. And then we do have to maintain the staff that we have, whether it's our special education teachers, our school psychologists, our paraeducators. We need those because they are in students' IEPs and provide the services that we are legally obligated to provide. Their contractual increases are much more reasonable. Those are the contracts we negotiate, but they still drive an increase in the pupil service budget. Overall, the pupil service budget is going up about 2.95%. So it's not quite as bad as transportation, but it still is an increase, and it's above the 1.54 that summarizes the total budget. There's a lot of fiscal uncertainty in pupil services. We never know our final excess cost reimbursement rate. We have no idea what the state will ultimately give us, and we sometimes have to adjust as a result. We always seem to face new legislation on July 1. Reductions to IDA grant funding. So actually, maybe this is better. It's not clear. From a federal level, it looks like they're increasing IDA funding. However, when they allocate it out to the state, it just goes to the state, and then the state decides how to allocate it to the districts. Case in point, this year, we had more special education students, but the state gave us less money. So just because we get more from the federal government doesn't necessarily translate to more from for the district. We do have variability with the 27 students who are outplaced. Their costs can shift wildly. They may not go to the outplacement, and now we have a savings of $200,000. Or the outplacement may need to add additional staff to support them, and now we have an additional cost of $150,000. So lots of variability there. Students moving, outplacements coming from the elementary school that we aren't expecting, and then homelessness also are all unknowns when we build this budget. The personnel fiscal impact, at least as of right now in the 1.54% budget, is one additional health and PE teacher. That is assuming we reassign somebody from the high school and make the scheduling changes. One world language teacher that we would share between the middle schools. The contracted C certified nursing assistant program, which again isn't necessarily adding an FTE, but we do need to work with an outside company who can provide that instruction and make sure our students take and pass the exam. And then the STEM instructional coach. Those are all directly related to the strategic plan. We also have the additional special education teacher because of the increased enrollment in our sales program, and then the 2 assistant coaches in our athletic program. We have to develop 5-year plans, so that way we don't have wild fluctuations in our budget. So we have those for technology. We also have those for textbooks. I will just point out that we actually have a lower textbook number in the 26-27 budget. In 27-28, we run out of a lot of our digital subscriptions, and so I expect to see a bigger increase in that textbook line. We haven't quite, because they're all expiring at the same time, and these are our resources for social studies and science, we don't really see a way of avoiding a spike in that year. When those subscriptions end. So that's just kind of a harbinger of the future, so to speak. We have a capital improvement plan, so that's going to look out at 5 years worth of possible projects. Some of those projects are in the operating budget. Some of those we've already designated our reserve educational fund to address. And then we also are anticipating going out to bond in 2027. Most critical on this list are going to be the HVAC replacement and the roof replacements at the middle schools. I also think that the PA and lockdown system at the high school is probably another safety and security feature that is fairly critical for the work that we have to do. In terms of the bond referendum, because Mr. Davis addressed it earlier, and I know that some board members have received questions about it, we are at step one. And so as part of building the budget, we have to make a 3-year forecast of what the budgets will look like. And the only way to do that with the bond is to create an anticipated bond. So that is what the principals and Ms. Loomis and Mr. Martoni and our directors have done. We haven't done anything else to move any of the other process forward. So the facilities committee still has to meet and talk about those projects. We have to identify what we might want to include in operational funds or in the use the reserve fund for. Whatever the facilities committee recommends, they still have to have approval by the board. The finance committee has to approve it because it's financial, connected to the bond. Then we have a building committee who has to still create and oversee everything. Then the board has to approve everything the building committee decides on, and then ultimately it goes to referendum. So any sort of talk that we have somehow already have projects rolling or in place, just again, we're at step one. We just needed to have a list that we could start to operate off of as we created 3-year forecasts. A reminder, we can set aside up to 2% for the educational expenses, and so that is our notice for next year. Initial budget requests, again, we came in at 2.97%. It was probably one of the lowest in the state right out the gate because of the decrease in debt service, but we have continued to try to whittle away at that through our conversations with our administrators and our staff. Also looking for other savings by things we do with our towns, like when we do our fuel bids, and ultimately have cut about $830,000 from those initial budget requests. Average daily membership drives the budgets, so you can see the shifts in enrollment that are sort of impacting the change to the towns themselves. And again, that brings us to the February 2nd proposed budget at the 1.54%. I feel fairly confident that even if we were at the 1.75, whether it's because of health insurance or not cutting a teacher, we're still probably one of the lowest districts in the state. I think we still are the lowest district in the state. So if we have to make those adjustments, we can. Just a reminder, we will credit the towns in March, and so you can see the amount of money that would be credited. As I mentioned at the AFC meeting the last time, I can't tell the towns what to do with this money because it just goes back to them. But I do know that some of our towns elect to apply it to the next fiscal budget and then offset whatever the increase is. So if they do that, you can see what the difference would be for the 3 towns. We did have a AFC meeting tonight, and they didn't vote. They were hoping to get some more information from the health insurance before they make any decisions. The feedback from Orange was that they would prefer us not to cut any teachers, but they would approve a budget at 1% increase. That is an interesting challenge and dilemma that is set before us. Bethany reported that they were very happy with the 1.54%. But I did ask our representative from Bethany to go back and see if they were willing to move a little bit in any direction, particularly up. They also mentioned that their school district is coming in at about 9% right now for their increase, so that's kind of making them a little cautious about any changes from Amity. And the feedback from Woodbridge wasn't really specific in terms of a budget amount, but they did just question if there are ways to perhaps not have quite so many FTEs. So that's kind of where we sit, and we'll see what happens on the 23rd when the AFC votes. And then you get to vote on March 9th on an approved budget. I'll continue to work on the Q&A document. You guys got a draft of it over with the Friday update, but we've obviously added some more questions, and then there were some I just hadn't dropped in there yet. But then once we have the draft going, we'll put it up live, and then we can continue to add questions over the course of the next couple of weeks. And at this point, Ms. Loomis and I are happy to answer questions.
Just a comment first to make sure everybody on the board understands. while we like to cooperate with the boards of finance, they have no legal authority to make any determination about our budget. So when somebody says they'll approve 1%, it means nothing. I don't even think.
Except to the extent that at the AFC, they have representation.
Well, that's why it's done. But to my knowledge, I don't think the Bethany Board of Finance or the Woodbridge even votes on what they're doing.
So I think they give feedback, and again.
They give feedback, right.
And it's really, I think, the feedback that comes from AFC that I think we have tended to listen to,
Right.
although I do recall years where our board has not operated in alignment with AFC. There have been years when our board has voted a budget that was lower than what AFC recommended, and there have been years when our board has voted a budget that was higher than what AFC recommended. So again, it's a recommendation, it's not locked in stone, but they do bring that information when we have our discussion and when they make the recommendation to the Board of Ed.
Right. And for those new members, in recent years, generally what the AFC has done is they've recommended a budget to us no higher than a certain level. And then we took action on reducing that number even more. So that's a pretty common occurrence. All right, do we have any specific questions? Donna, first.
Yeah, thank you, Jen. So I didn't attend the Woodbridge meeting for the joint meeting with you, but one concern I had heard was that, we talked about the bond projects that you have to put together a plan. The question they had was the transparency as to what grass field upgrades mean, and it's artificial turf. Now, I know that it's just something that's put together, but it would be
Donna,
helpful.
it's kind of out of order to discuss that now, because that's something we're not going to hear for years.
No, I'm just asking to have the title change, that's all. In the actual document. So
Okay, well.
yeah, that's all, just for transparency. That was the one thing I heard.
So I just wanted to add a little texture to what the Woodbridge folks said at the AFC. So the sense was that they're worried about FTE, as you said, and it's not entirely. I want to say something.
I do.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's probably the same conversation. I don't think we should manage the FTEs. I think we have to manage to the best of our knowledge, right? Balancing our towns and balancing what's right for the children. And it's up to Jen to decide where that money is spent and how it's spent for the children. I don't think we should be defining FTEs.
No, I wasn't planning to do that.
But that was one of the comments she got, could you cut FTEs?
Yeah, no, I was just reporting on that, and it just seemed to me like it wasn't a very concrete ask, and essentially there is some pressure, just as in every other meeting, and I don't know if it is even the consensus of the Woodbridge folks, but they were asked to actually represent themselves. So I just wanted to say it wasn't a very hard ask. But I think it was like somebody.
Just can you do it with fewer FTEs?
And it's useful to think that, meaning if folks in Woodbridge are watching, right? Like, we're talking about a 1.9% or something like that to a 2.11%, which is relatively low compared to the 4% that the Woodbridge Board of Education is asking as well. So I think there is, people are likely to accept a reasonable range. So. Yeah, I just wanted to make that point.
Yes, Donna.
So I just want to be clear, with the new level of your presentation, you're talking possibly 1.9%?
If we get the very worst case scenario on the health insurance, yes, it would be up to 1.9. And that is with the change of the PE that's in the current 1.54.
So adding the PE?
No, that is with the PE still pulled out.
Okay,
And
so.
then the budget's still gonna go up because of the health insurance.
Okay, so that's with the health insurance. Now, we also mentioned tonight about putting the PE back. So what would that be then?
So then we would be kind of back where we started, right around probably 2.2.
Yeah.
I mean, the general rule of thumb, just average, is an FTE is about $120,000 between salary and benefits.
Yes.
Is the way to think about it.
So Dawn, are you suggesting?
I'm just saying, that's not too bad either. I mean, it's a far stretch from where we were at 1.54, but we're still doing good with that. That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
I
I
dare
don't
say,
think we would be the lowest in the state anymore, but we would be in the bottom.
I dare say of 169 towns who have to deal with school budgets, probably 98% of them would be very happy to hear a 2.1.
And I bet you their health insurance went up too.
So, could I make a couple of comments? I don't think we should be, I don't think we would come at the high end of the insurance thing. I think you are being cautious because I think we are hitting the stop loss limits. And last year also, I think we had something similar, and we did not end up anywhere as high as the upper bounds were. So maybe we are being a little extra cautious about that 2.2. I don't think we will get there. So I just wanted to make that point, that seems like an upper limit, and maybe we should be thinking like somewhere more in the average range of the increase, maybe closer to 1.8, 1.9, I think.
Could you share what our increases have been for the past 5 years? And if you can't, could you have it for next time?
Terry can probably open up.
It's a page in the budget book. Page 141 for, I have an average of 9 adopted budgets, an average of 2.19%. The last 5 years I don't have averaged in here, but they're all in there. It's 1.8, 3.19, 2.25, 3.49, and 2.37 for last year.
Last year was how much?
I think it was 2.37 or 2.97.
2.97.
It didn't show up on the graph, but I think it's 2.97.
We'll follow up with an exact little chart for you. We'll put it in
I think that
the
might be
Q&A.
helpful.
Any more questions? Chris?
Question. On the FTE, I don't want to belabor it, but I think there's something about that issue that's got a couple of us and even towns scratching their heads. The 120 for FTE, is that when you hire, kind of ground level, entry level, right? And then if you hire an FTE at ground level, entry level, based upon the contract negotiation, that's an investment or an expenditure that's going to go up until that person leaves the position of the district for every year, 3% more. So when we hire an FTE at 120 to start, that is a 120 that's going to become more and more and more every year. And that does not, I don't think, factor the healthcare, does it? Like if
The
that, if
120 would include benefits plus salary.
an average of, they average it out per capita.
And just because I'm the one who threw that number out, that was based on, when I did that math, it was, this is how many people the district employs, and this is our total salary and benefits number, so that already takes into account like an average tenure, it's not the entry level.
We factor in for a new position based on past hiring, where we've actually been able to hire. We used to budget at a master step 5, and now we're at a master step 9, because it's just who the applicants are. So we're hiring very few people. Sometimes we're able to hire somebody who's brand new out of school, and it's, a bachelor's 1 or a master's 1, but we are finding more often than not in the past 2 to 3 years, it is at a higher step. So someone might retire at a step 13, but you're not gaining as much of a difference there.
Understood, thank you. And that comprises or consists about, what, 2/3 of our budget is really the personnel that is
Yes.
non-discretionary, that will only increase every single year. And our overall non-discretionary is what, 85, 87%?
I mean, when you take out sort of special education, which we are mandated to do, you take out all the other things that we already have contracts for. So if it's busing or snowplows or our groundskeeping, our Xerox copy contracts, it's probably like around 5%.
It's like 90% of the budget is based on some kind of contract or mandated service.
And then we have our debt service, and then what's left is the discretionary sliver of the pie.
So when we come in under that 2.83, which is the average, I think, obligation for our contractual obligations, we're actually having to take away from that 10% sliver, right?
Yes, and in this year, we fortunately aren't feeling the pain of it because the big piece where we're taking it away is from the debt service.
The drop in debt service is like 1%.
But there's something going forward, I mean, just to circle all the way back to the FTEs, that really is one of the biggest parts of our budget. And on one hand, the people and the teachers and the educators and the administrators are clearly absolutely one of the most important, you know, assets we can have in our educational system. On the other hand, it's also one of the most expensive. I think that's where our towns are worried about adding an FTE or two, because that's not an expense that we zero out and come back to a zero budget next year. Every time we add an FTE, that's one that'll be there next year, plus 3%, plus more.
As long as the FTE, in this particular case, is a teacher, because we use that term for all of our full-time employees.
Sure, and union, not union, but,
Right, yeah.
but typically, when we add them, I won't ask to put on the spot, but how many have we added that we've actually removed over the years versus has in our FTE numbers just gone up and up and up every year?
Most of those are actually,
Yeah, our FTE numbers have gone up. The vast majority has been in special education because of the special programs we've added. And again, when we say FTE, we're also talking not just teachers, but paraeducators who are supporting the students. The other place where we had a huge increase is in security guards, because when we added the Sally ports and had to have somebody sort of man the Sally port, but then we still needed a security guard walking around the school, we more than doubled the number of security guards that we had. And we added guards at nighttime, because we realized that opening up the buildings at night wasn't practical, wasn't really accomplishing what we needed for security. But I would say by far and away, if we look at the actual positions, it's primarily special education programs that bring kids back from out-of-district placements and security.
But special ed is important to say that the special ed actually saves.
Yes.
So in contrast to what we might think that it is increasing, because it takes away from the money that we have to spend, the effect of that is actually to lower the budget over the longer term. So special ed in some sense is a savings.
It's expensive to keep in-house versus.
Keep in-house, and therefore it's actually a savings thing. Those FTEs actually cause us to cumulatively save over time.
Trust your analysis in that one. I am curious as to what the
Yes,
increase
but
every
they've
year,
done the analysis, they can show us.
benefits versus the not paying ancillary costs would be, but I think that's already been done many times before, so trust your thoughts on that. Thank you, Doug.
And they're educated in our community, they stay in the community as well.
And you don't have the transportation cost.
Right, there's a lot of benefits. Jen, can I just ask how many open positions we have right now?
We have one paraeducator, I believe, that we are maybe about to fill, and then we have one special education teacher. And a nighttime security guard.
Okay, thank you, I'm just trying to get an idea.
all right.
We do, we have 2 retirements for the anticipated, or announced for the end of this year.
I just want to echo on Kathy too. So we vote on the budget and we rely on you to make the best choices for the kids and to cut where you think is the right place to cut and to add where you think is the right place to add. It's very difficult sometimes to look at our budgets each year knowing that each year we carry over a huge surplus. So, it's just very hard to digest that, knowing that each year we have a huge surplus. And one would say that we might be able to keep all those FTE positions if we were able to use some of the money from the surplus from year to year.
Interestingly enough, we are statutorily required to use that surplus to lower the following year net budget. So one of the things we did this year to do that is to reduce the amount of money that the towns are paying us from the original requirement that we had. So I think what you saw up there, we have going in March, we're reducing what each of the towns has to pay this district. The town gets the benefit of that, and they can then take that funds, they can do whatever they want with it, but as Dr. Byers mentioned, we can't tell them what to do, but putting it back into next year's budget under education actually is saving the taxpayers quite a bit of money. So when we run a surplus, it's never money that's not used for something that's important as far as education goes for the district. It has to go to educational projects for the district. Can take 2%, put it in a fund, but this board has always established projects that need to be funded and dedicate that money to those particular funds. There's nothing unspoken for.
Could I just add a couple of things? We saw the numbers there, right? Orange is getting back $500,000. So effectively, their number is going down this year. Woodbridge is going, no, I just wanted to say, like, Woodbridge is increasing by about 16,000 or something with the 1.54%. That's, and so that's a relatively small amount. And the variability that we talk about because of the surplus arises from people leaving. We have to budget for the people who are going to be working. When they leave and we don't necessarily pay, it's like, that adds to the surplus. So, there is obviously the risk that we cannot go under budget because, the board cannot do what the towns can do, which is to supplant whatever money that is left over. But a lot of the reasons, once you analyze the budget, is actually coming from things that we really cannot change. That doesn't mean there is no space to change at all, but I think a lot of because we give back the money every year, there is effectively the cost at most, if we saved from the money that we do, would be a $30,000 one-time return to the taxpayer. One time, because the next year, the budget is continuously being returned, the money is returned. So the effective thing is we have about a $30,000 interest cost that we will be saving the taxpayer once. And for that, we will have to take a tremendous amount of risk for the school district to actually say, well, we may run out of money. So I think maybe we worry about the surplus a little bit more than we should because it's effectively not costing the taxpayer as much as we think when we think about it as in the millions. So I just wanted to say that again.
I'll say the other part of it is, I disagree a lot about talking about surpluses because, very honestly, our surplus is generated in a number of ways. Number one, the outstanding work that our finance department, the superintendent does. Very often, we talked about, let's say, hiring a teacher. We may have a teacher that resigns at the highest salary level. Teacher comes in at several $1,000s in that area. We have people that resign and we have a position that's not filled, which I think is actually costing us more money than it's saving in this particular case. But there are things that allow us to generate that surplus that we can't predict if we're getting more funding. So it's the budget is set up to spend what we budget. And if we don't spend it, we are required to spend it the next year for educational purposes. That's it. We don't have a choice. So I don't see it as costing the taxpayers more money. I think in the long run, it actually is saving the taxpayers money because they may not have to pay the high level of taxes the next year if the town decides to take that money we give back to them or let them not spend and put it into the budget for the school district the next year. And what about $550,000 for Orange?
Yes.
So next year, if they choose, they could lower for the taxpayers $550,000.
Yes.
Good. Okay. At least I thought about get that right. Are we all set for now? We will be talking about budget more, and there may be some changes before we vote, and we have the AFC doing that. And we have a few other items on our agenda that I'd like to kind of work in the express fashion. Committee reports, ACES. Anything on ACES?
Nothing to report from ACES from our last meeting.
Thank you very much. Ad hoc school start time.
Tomorrow, 4 o'clock.
Okay, the meeting tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Is it a Zoom meeting?
It is.
Zoom meeting.
Public comment, please feel free to send a letter, and you can watch it.
I took note, and I talked to Don about this, that the survey for the middle schools did indicate that there were quite a few parents who were concerned about having a later start time.
There were 4.
4, okay. How many more were?
I'm just saying, like, if you say quite a few,
Okay.
there were 4.
I didn't look at the specific number, but it was mentioned.
Well, it was
Or
mentioned
more
at
than
least
usually
once.
respond.
It's mentioned at least once in the survey of the very small number of parents who responded.
Okay. Communications, Carol?
We meet tomorrow at 5:30.
Okay.
And we'll be working on PTSO engagement.
Very good. Curriculum,
Yes, we met a couple hours ago, and there was a discussion on action of additional course additions, and it was unified arts and public speaking. We did approve that to bring it to the board at the March meeting for presentation. We'll hear more about that.
thank you. Look forward to that. District technology, the monthly report is on page 8. Any questions? No?
Right here.
Yes.
Sorry, I just noticed that, and it was on last week, but we didn't end up last week, but we didn't end up talking about it. The solar canopy, I guess there's a potential for a delay, which would be an entire year, is that?
So that's actually facilities.
Yeah. Facilities.
Still up in the air. That'll still, Ms. Margaret, if you want to, there's just some.
All timelines with lawyers and agreements.
Do we know when we'll find out?
And theoretically, that would affect next year's budget by 70, 80 grand if
We
it
did
does.
not take a reduction for the solar credit because I was planning on, I thought we'd be further in the process, that I could take that around this time, but since we don't know what's gonna happen, there is no.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought that was
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, it's that question.
And the facilities?
So facilities, I'll keep it short, but you can read the report, but to echo Mr. Marzoni, I want to thank the custodial staff. I don't know if everybody else's back hurts as much as mine does from all the snow that we got, but the custodial staff here did a fantastic job of getting the school ready and open for our kids to be here and be safe, so I appreciate the efforts that they put forth.
Thank them for that. Finance, monthly financial statements.
I'll keep it brief. We've heard about health insurance, where we're at. We did capture some savings from unpaid leave of absences and the vacancies in this report, about $158,000, but we also are expecting that electricity and natural gas will each be over budget about $50,000. We have a circulator pump that connects to the fuel cell on our side that is that broke and we were waiting for a part. So during this coldest stretch, we have not been able to capture the heat from the fuel cell, so we've had to use natural gas.
And are you projecting, what were you projecting on the health insurance?
Well, it's at 107% now. As we talked about in AFCs, that several people have hit the stop loss, so we could start to see it taper off, but we just don't know.
There's no change to the forecast right now.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, transfers under 3,000, they're on page 43. If you had an opportunity to look at those. Generally, normal monthly changes. Personnel, we had one person turn in retirement, I think, a teacher. And other than that, new business and announcements, I do not have any. Any questions? Any announcements? Items for the next regular meeting agenda, due by the end of February, and that's the March meeting. We will be voting on a budget at the March meeting.
I have one final question.
Yes.
If the middle school schedule is not implemented, so how many FTEs will be affected by that? How many FTEs will be taken out if the middle school schedule is not implemented this coming year? 3. And the health teacher goes back to, the gym teacher goes back to.
Yeah, we wouldn't make any.
There's no change for the high school.
Okay. If you have a concern about anything regarding the budget, things that we discussed today, I would recommend that you contact Dr. Byers and let her know your feelings about that particular area or the concern. And that would help give her some guidance as to what board members are supporting and opposed. Right?
Yes, phone call, come on in.
Give her a phone call, whatever. All right. So if there's no objection, we will be in adjournment at 8:50 PM. We are adjourned.
Carrie. So